It's the thought of ever going back to them places. When I'm on a bad day, I'm not going back there. That gives me the power to train. It comes down to mental strength. It comes down to them 1%. You need to be able to train constant hours, make sacrifices, just be dedicated to improve. With the Oxydise H-bot as well, my focus, my willingness to train is a lot higher. If I do a hard session and I hit the H-bot, I feel fantastic straight after it. The red light, it brings down inflammation, it just makes me feel brand new. These are the percentages that give you them seconds at the end of a race. Unless you're doing the stuff that nobody else does, you're not going to get to that level. These are part of my routine and I'd be lost without them. My name is Jeremy McConnell and I'm a Hyrox athlete. Hyrox consists of 8 1K runs with an element of functional fitness in between. What got me into Hyrox first was the local gym that I attended. The lads went and competed first. I later got involved, and the way the competition was, you were able to go back and look at your results, work on your areas of weaknesses and improve. And I think it's just that constant area to be able to better yourself that got me hooked. The physical demands of Hyrox is you need a huge aerobic capacity. You need to be able to train constant hours, make sacrifices, whether that be family, friends, going out. You need to have a solid head on your shoulders to be able to stare at a screen for 3 hours if you're on the bike, and just be dedicated to improve. It takes, I've made so many sacrifices to get better at this sport, and so many will have to be made in the future also. Preparing for a competition in Hyrox would depend mainly on what stage you're at. If you are building, if you're getting ready, if it's close to the event. If it's off season, I would be working aerobically. I'm building that capacity along with my strength. I would then progress towards more of a threshold block where the race is really ran. And 2 to 3 weeks out, then I'd focus anaerobic work. So it would be redlining, making sure that I'm, race specific and that I'm mentally preparing in those last couple of weeks as well. The areas of the body that take the most strain would predominantly be your legs. Everything goes through the legs. If you think about it, it's like you're running. The wall balls, the lunges, sleds as legs. And then like burpees, even that jump when you're in a fatigue state, again, you'll feel it most in your legs. But yeah, it's predominantly lower body. So, you need big, strong legs to be able to carry you through this event. So I would always focus on the legs as the muscle group to be focusing on. The protocols I take while training for a competition is you need to be resting a lot. I'm big into contrast therapy as well. Sauna, it's great for your cardio system. Ice bath afterwards for recovery. Supplements as well. I'm big into, my magnesium, and I think when we train certain hours close to bedtime, we need to be, aiding our sleep as well. Cordyceps, I'm big on, obviously all my, the main kind of creatine, beta-alanine. But I would say rest is the most important for me. And again, switching off on your rest days, we need to be doing the things that we like to enjoy, that keep us calm, and not losing who we are as people as well. Trying to live a normal life as well on them rest days. The other protocols I use to keep me in check for competition, thanks to Oxydise, would be the H-bot. It's the oxygen chamber, which again, for recovery, if I do a hard session and I hit the H-bot, automatically I feel, brand new. Again, I noticed that my endurance levels as well with continuous use is fantastic. And obviously the red light combined with that, I normally hit it early mornings. It brings down inflammation, and again, it just makes me feel brand new. So, these are a massive daily part of my routine, and I'd be lost without them. With the Oxydise H-bot as well, my focus and my willingness to train is a lot higher. On them groggy days sometimes where you might have an early session, I do notice that after use, it's I'm gunning to go, and again afterwards, any excuse to get into it for recovery or just general fatigue, it's amazing. As an Elite 15 athlete, the main thing that separates me from an amateur or somebody new starting out would be the hours that I can train. I have the utmost respect for people that can balance family life, work, and also are there trying their best to be able to compete at a good level. And there's a lot of people that do that, but I feel the main difference is just the hours that I've been able to pack in and build on my endurance, which is the main kind of base that you need for a Hyrox. And that takes, like I said, a long time. It takes years. It's not a month's thing or a weekly thing. You need to dedicate your life in order to get them hours up to build that fundamental kind of endurance to then stack on the threshold, to stack on the anaerobic stuff. And then you have to be mentally resilient as well. So having bad races, good races, you need the experience of just competing a lot to be able to understand where the change and learn on the mistakes. The main difference for the elites at the very top, I would feel, from competing, it's mindset. It's, instead of coming down to kind of hours in training, I think everybody's gonna do that work that the body can comprehend. It comes down to mental strength. It comes down to them 1%. It comes down to what you're doing first thing in the morning. It comes down to your diet. It comes down to, again, like I say, with Oxydise, it's using the H-bot, it's using the red light therapy. These are the percentages that give you them seconds at the end of a race. And, unless you're doing the stuff that nobody else does, you're not gonna get to that level. So it's making sure that your game is well-rounded. Training volume and intensity at an elite level, again, it needs to be done correctly. You need to have progressive overload within everything that you do, and that comes from base. You need to build your volume up, weekly. And then when you bring the intensity in, it needs to be done as well as a progression, because there's no development without progression. You will just plateau. So again, it's going through the energy systems within the time frame that you have. So you more than likely would need 3 to 4 months to do a block. Within races, there could be a race block, but within that there's periodized progression or a periodized program, which is you're kind of nailing everything. You're nailing your base, threshold and anaerobic work in a short time frame, so 6 weeks maybe. But you still always need to go back to base to then kind of escalate through the energy systems to then do your intensity work. So you need time, and when you don't have the time and you have them 6 weeks, you still need to go through the base, threshold and anaerobic work. Some of the sacrifices I've made to get to a good level in Hyrox, I think it's the standard ones, it's missing parties, birthdays, dinner reservations, and I think it's, again, when you have that kind of sewn into your mind that you want to be up there with the best, you don't want to be going to these parties. And I think that's, again, for the type of person I am, it's a blessing in disguise. You want to be able to, I'd rather sit there on a bike for 3 hours than sit there talking nonsense in the kitchen. My journey has been difficult. I've always spoke openly about it. I think that's the beauty in being authentic as a person. I've said no to sponsors that have asked me to act in a certain way or a certain manner. I'm fully authentic in my approach and speaking about my past to help others. And with that truth and not being computer says no or vanilla in a certain way, I think answering the questions that need to be answered is a powerful message. Speaking about addiction, speaking about stuff that you've faced in the past and people slandering you, never really giving you an opportunity to show who you truly are. I could speak about it for years and years, but I decided to take action on it and put myself in front of people and be like, you couldn't get to this physical, standard without putting the work in. I wanted to, showing is better than telling. And I think more people like myself that are honest in our flaws need to be given, I would say, not respect, but if you're going to give us the hate with a certain amount of energy, give us love with the same amount of energy if there's change, okay? And I'll always stand by who I am as a person and my mistakes, because inevitably I'm where I am now, and I'll always go out on my shield. You harness the energy of the Tao, the bereavements. My mum, brother, sister, dad are all dead. I lost my father mainly seeing me in the worst state when I was suffering with addiction, and you know, it's the thought of ever going back to them places when I'm on a bad day, which, you know, it could be most days during the week. I'm like, I'm not going back there. That gives me the power to train. That gives me the power to race, to compete. And when I walk out on that elite stage, you know, the first thing I do is point to my dad and the rest of my fallen family to say, you know, I wish they could see me now. And, you know, I might not be at the level that I want to be at, but I'm certainly in the process of getting there. And again, like I said, we all come from different backgrounds. I still feel like I've many years to improve in this. I'm only 3 years really, you know, putting that training in. So I feel with the more time I have, I will prove to people more so, and I will keep spoon feeding people that doubted me. Hyrox is different because it merges the elements of running and strength, which in essence, they both contradict each other, because, you know, running is, you know, you're essentially ruining strength gains. So you need to carry a certain amount of strength, and then if you're running 20 Ks, 30 Ks within that week, it's gonna cause damage to the hypertrophy that you're trying to create. So again, it's finding that sweet spot that works for you as a competitor. It's what you can kind of build on your strengths. And yeah, I think that's the beauty in Hyrox, is trying to be able to merge the strength with the running. And again, you need to run long, or you need to bike long, or you're doing this endurance, but you do need the strength for the sleds, for the wall balls, for the lunges. So I think it varies from person to person, and nobody really truly understands the perfect way to train for it. So I think we're all on that journey just to figure it out, and I think that's the beauty in it. The physical qualities that Hyrox demands, you know, you need to be able to run. I remember starting out in this sport that you see so many developed lads and girls that have a lot of muscle that thought they'd be able to blitz it, and they go on their first K run and you see them on the ski erg and it's game over for them. And you know, that's no disrespect to people, but I think a lot of people get humbled. I listen to jokes constantly about Hyrox this, Hyrox that, they only run with their tops off. I urge people that are given that amount of slander to the sport, just come and try it. Try it for yourself and see how you get on, and never, you know, judge a book by its cover, because Hyrox is tough. You know, I played football at a high level. I competed in a lot of sports, and you know, Hyrox isn't easy. And I think, you know, the sport itself needs respect put on its name. And you know, for the people that want to continue to knock it, they need to try it first. The main mistakes that I have made in Hyrox is it's a running joke with people, and it's going out too hot. I think, you know, it's about pacing. The sport is about understanding when to push at your strengths and to hold back your weaknesses. Take a little bit off a run if you're going into an element you may not be too strong on, and pushing the run on an element you're going in that you are strong at. And it comes with experience. And again, it's very hard, just personally speaking, always take them first 2 kilometer runs a little bit slower, because then on the overall 8 runs, it will balance itself out a little bit. So never go out too hot, and enjoy the race. You know, you need to smile. We've paid to be here, and you know, there's no point in putting too much pressure on yourself. We're running around the convention centre with our top off. I first got introduced to Oxydise through social media. For my performance, I was looking for the smallest way to improve, and I knew a lot of athletes that were doing the HBOT therapy, and I saw Oxydise online, and it just automatically stood out to me, the way that they ran their social media pages, the clients that they had, and then obviously dealing with Alan and the staff. They were just gentlemen, so that's why I chose Oxydise. When I was training before Oxydise, I would just have constant niggles. I'd have DOMs that would take days and days to go away, and I noticed when I started using Oxydise on the chamber, my recovery was sped up enormously, and I couldn't imagine not using it. I personally define good recovery as hitting a good session, and then, you know, within the next day that you're ready to go again, being able to keep consistently training at a 6 or 7 RPE, rate of perceived exertion. And again, with the HBOT, you're able to do that. You know, you feel fantastic straight after it. When you get in the morning, or before you train even, you know, you just feel ready to attack the day with focus and energy. So it's a massive help for me. When my recovery is neglected in training, you know, I'm flat constantly. And, you know, I think, again, people kind of overlook how important recovery is. You know, this is where the adaptation happens from the hard days that we train. I would go as far as saying that your rest days are more important than your hard days. Again, supported by Oxydise and the H-bot and the red light. These are staples in my training, and without them, you know, I certainly a huge difference. H-bot and red light fit into my training schedule. I would normally use the hyperbaric chamber tent on hard days in the evening, 2 to 3 hours after a hard session. The red light I would use in the mornings, you know, if you woke up and you felt kind of a niggle here, or any kind of, again, like I said, over-inflammation in the body, that automatically makes me feel so much fresher, so then I can attack my training session in that day. My vision for the next stage of my career in Hyrox is to continue pushing. I'm in the Elite 15 doubles as it is now. The goal has always been to do that in the singles. Again, listen, I had people laugh at me when I was sitting on a park bench full of vodka to even get up and go to the local gym. So if people, you know, they'd be very silly to laugh at me saying that I do it in the singles. Again, I'm not afraid to have that kind of mindset to be able to push into them, you know, areas, and I feel I can. So, you know, you need to hope for the best, keep doing the stuff that we can control and keep pushing, so that would definitely be the goal.